Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 9th day of August in the year of our Lord 2024. I will be talking about the Secret Service again. Secret Service in its recent series of abject failures to perform its function even modestly, let alone in the fashion we have come to expect from that vaunted agency. I decided to resist my natural instinct to devote all my attention to the coming war in the Middle East, which I predict the United States will find it impossible to resist, and instead devote my attention to something just about as dangerous right here at home. Yes, indeed, the Secret Service is the rock of the United States government, and it is filled with the most highly trained and dedicated agents in all of government, right? Well, no, folks. That is no longer right. As we will see in this report, the service is secret because its agents are supposed to be invisible. They are seen but not seen. As part of the landscape, you hardly notice them, but they are always there. The philosophy of the service, as well as the agents who staff it, has been similar to doctors. The doctor doesn't rejoice in the recovery room when his work is successful, and he doesn't weep in the cemetery when it isn't. He just tries to find out what is going on and just keeps on going. The agent doesn't care who he is assigned to protect. He just does his job with professionalism and confidence, putting his own life on the line in the process. The agents are not responsible for the behavior of their protectees, only their protection. If the protectee cheats on his wife or is a drunk or does business with underworld characters, that is not the agent's concern, only safety. Things seem to have changed at the service in recent years to the point that we have come to expect lying, stonewalling, obfuscation regarding the failure of the agents to properly do their jobs. It is very clear right now that the service has not been forthright with the investigation of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, so the American people can no longer depend on the service to protect its assigned protectee unless that person happens to have a political philosophy and agenda in line with the service and its controllers. What we can depend on with certainty is the service lying about its failure to do the job with which the American people have entrusted it. Little by little, information about the attempted assassination leaks out from whistleblowers inside the service. With each revelation, it looks worse. The series of security failures was so large that it seems obvious that the service is no longer even competent, let alone elite. Lies follow lies, but some are just too obvious. The director of the FBI covering for the service by saying that perhaps Trump was not shot. His lie was quickly put to rest by doctors, but why would he tell such a lie? Perhaps it was a cover for the service, but more likely just a difference of political views. My favorite lie, though, was from the interim director of the service, or perhaps it wasn't a lie, just simple incompetence and lack of intelligence. When Director Kimberly Cheadle resigned, a new director or interim director had to be appointed, and that was Ronald Rowe, a man with 24 years of service. While being questioned by members of Congress about how this attempted assassination could have happened, he said it was, quote, a failure of imagination, end quote. The service could never have imagined that anybody would want to take a shot at Donald Trump. The more you think about that response, the more hilarious it becomes, and it could take us down a number of rabbit trails, but nevertheless, that was his answer. So the service just could not imagine that we live in a dangerous world, and that is why its agents were tasked with protecting one of the highest profile, most polarizing people in the world. I can't help but wonder how such a man managed to rise to his position in the federal government. A lack of imagination, then, caused the service's counter-sniper team to not attend the pre-event coordination meeting with local law enforcement, and they had zero communication with local SWAT teams. That is only one of a series of failures and inexplicable things that happened during the event. In fact, it's harder to find things the service did right than it is to pinpoint mistakes. One wonders if all these failures to properly do the job of protecting Trump were just stupid incompetence, or whether something more sinister was going on in many countries around the globe. those countries we often refer to as third world, we would immediately assume the incompetence was a cover-up for something more sinister. Here in America, we are the essential and exceptional nation, and above all that, we walk with pride in the knowledge that we are not just physically and intellectually superior, but morally superior as well. Government conspiracies are very difficult to pull off, as we all know, because they usually require the silence of hundreds, perhaps thousands of people, which would be very unlikely. On the other hand, if the people heading the event were as obviously incompetent as Kimberly Cheadle and Robert Rowe, who denied resources to Trump's security detail and assigned inexperienced agents to it, perhaps there is something to it. There are many problems here, but we all know for certain right now is that resources were strangled and substandard agents were assigned to the team. Is that enough to suspect something sinister? Perhaps, but it gets worse, folks. What we have been discussing is all pre-shooting failures and incompetence. Once shots were fired, the incompetence continued. When the alleged shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, was killed by counter-sniper fire, apparently, there was an autopsy of his body. By the way, isn't it interesting how the lone nut always has three names? Lee Harvey Oswald, Sirhan, James Earl Ray, and now Thomas Matthew Crooks. Post-shooting investigations of the lone nut's background usually reveal that he was never referred to by people by three names, but that's how we're supposed to remember him. I have seen reports of the autopsy from this past week, but the Butler County Coroner's Office released cause and manner of death on July 21st. Cause and manner do not constitute an autopsy, as any good lawyer can tell you. It seems that an autopsy has been conducted, but it is doubtful whether we will ever be able to see its results. Virtually everything having to do with physical evidence in this case, including position of the body, location of wounds consistent with sniper rifle fire that supposedly killed him, all are being guarded like state secrets. Why? Nobody seems to know. Nobody seems to know why the public can't see this evidence, what all the secrecy is about. What it does is fuel doubt and cause speculation and a belief that something sinister is going on. It seems to me that it is incumbent on the part of the service, its boss, Homeland Security, their boss, the president, to be more forthright with their answers. I'm a little sick of their go-away peon attitude. If you want to know why everything seems like a conspiracy, it's because they make it so. What is the burden of proof here? Is it criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, or the civil standard of it's more likely than not, because using that standard, it's starting to look bad for the service. The service has many other issues that might lead one to believe that leadership is less than forthright with us. Somebody left cocaine in plain view in the White House, but the service has no clue who did it. The cocaine, it has now been revealed, was in a container which had DNA evidence on it. But still, we the people are not entitled to know who left and apparently used cocaine in our house. A Secret Service uniformed division officer found the bag of cocaine on July 2, 2023, on a Sunday while the president was in Camp David. The ensuing dispute between the uniformed division, the Forensic Services Division, and the Secret Service leadership became public knowledge. The leadership, meaning Kimberly Cheadle, apparently wanted to protect her friends and her boss in the Biden family, but the other divisions refused to go along. That is the story now that Kimberly Cheadle is no longer the director. Secret Service agents took Vice President-elect Harris to the DNC, that's the Democrat National Committee, before the January 6th protest, riot, insurrection, or whatever you choose to call it, and whatever you choose to believe about it. I realize it's extremely hard to discern what to believe, and too often it comes down to a person's preconceived political bias. The sketchy information, otherwise known as lies, is revealed to us piecemeal and in a fashion that tells us what we are supposed to believe. For example, the pipe bomb placed on the bench outside DNC headquarters that day was clearly visible on video. Children played near it, but no one stopped them. The supposed bomb was of comic book variety with a timer like a large kitchen clock. So for the service and for the government, some questions need to be answered. There are many others, but some that occur to me are these. What was the pipe bomb, inert or active? Why was EOD people not called to dispose of the bomb? If it was an active as opposed to inert bomb, why didn't the explosive detection dogs find it? Why did it take the service more than a year to reply to the Inspector General's request for January 6 documents when the Vice President-elect said she felt threatened or that her life was in danger that day? Why did it take a year to learn that she was not even in the Capitol complex that day? Why did the service and its agents and leadership sit by while people they knew to be innocent were given enhanced sentences because of a threat to the Vice President-elect? There are many questions to be asked and many answered about the attempted assassination as well as Cocaine Gate and Insurrection Gate. Once Director Cheadle fell on her sword, why was no one fired for incompetence? The answer is the same shuffling answer that we always get, and that is the investigation is ongoing and so on, so forth, etc. Some in Congress, even some in the conservative press, are suggesting that because of this administration's emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, the standards may have been lowered to the level of incompetence in favor of identity politics. The service's website is revealing. Might give us one reason to think that just might be the case. Its various categories for recruitment include outreach to African Americans, Pacific Islanders, Hispanic people, indigenous nations, federal women's program, LGBTQ, persons with disabilities, disabled veterans, Office of the Ombudsman, and Inclusion and Engagement Council. What is missing from this list is merit. And there is nothing about being willing to take the bullet meant for the protectee. This makes me think that morale and job satisfaction among all those dedicated dark suits and dark glasses can't be very high. To be thought of as an incompetent failure must be difficult for them, and being politically correct and loyal like a good lapdog is not much of a compromise. Whatever happened to honor and the refusal to compromise, or what used to be known as character and integrity? Finally, folks, the lack of imagination the interim director blamed for this debacle cost a man his life and deprived his family of his love, provision, and protection. It also caused several people to be wounded and a presidential candidate to be wounded and almost killed. Is the destruction and dissolution of our society planned? Quoting the interim director, the investigation is still ongoing, etc., so on and so forth. At least that's the way I see it, folks. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.